Hey, welcome to the podcast today. I've got a couple of amazing guests, Leash and Christine. Thank you so much for joining us. You might notice we're in a different place. We're actually in a nice little sound booth today, recording this one while we're here all together. And I thought I'd take this opportunity to ask these amazingly experienced massage women about a couple of interesting questions. Today, we're going to focus in on the ethics of massage, and maybe sometimes you might have had ethical dilemmas specifically, or challenging kind of conversations or situations in massage, in the business, or with clients that we can maybe share with our listeners and viewers so they can get an idea of how you might have handled that and what they might do themselves. How does that sound?
Sounds fun.
Sounds exciting.
I know it's
Yes.
an interesting topic because it means we get to chat about some stuff that might be a bit funny and a bit fun,
Yeah,
but in
absolutely.
context of being really helpful to the people who are
Yes.
listening. So, yeah, tell us a story. What's maybe the most difficult, what you would call ethical dilemma that you've
Mm.
experienced in your clinical practice?
Specifically with a client. Um,
Yeah, start with the client if you can think of something like that.
Oh, okay. I've got one.
Go, Christine.
Um, so it was one of my staff members' clients, and she came to me and said, I have a client who is overweight and is not smelling fresh when they come for a massage. And I was like, okay, number one, I'm never going to make you massage someone who you're not comfortable massaging. And she was a bit like, phew. This is completely up to you if you want to continue treating this person. However, let's think about the situation of this client. What benefits does he have from massage? And what would happen for him if he was to no longer receive massage? So he was a single man living in a remote location on a farming property, and it was a drought situation, and potentially we've got isolation and potentially loneliness. Coming for his massage once a fortnight was a connection with another human being. And it just so happened that he hadn't even thought of perhaps having a shower before he left the farm.
I mean, he's saving water, right?
Exactly. He's saving water. So he honestly, I don't think it was even the first thing on his mind. So she had a really long, hard think about this and decided to have a conversation with this client and very bravely said, There's something I would like to discuss with you before we have our treatment today. And I've noticed that sometimes there's mud on your legs, and perhaps what would be really great is can you have a shower before you come for treatment next time? And he was a bit like, ooh. And she was very kind and explained that, with the mixture of the massage waxes and everything, it's just more hygienic. And he would probably benefit from his massage more. He might be able to relax more. Um, and yeah, so that's what happened.
And how did it go though, Christine? Like she drew up the courage to actually have that difficult conversation. What happened?
Positive outcome.
Whew.
So I know. So positive outcome. She was really brave. Had the conversation. It was well received. Was super gentle and kind in her conversation style. We did practice it
Oh,
beforehand,
great.
and I'm very happy to say that the client showered for the next treatments and came in fully prepared, and yeah,
That's good.
continue to get massage and the benefits from it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
what a great outcome.
yeah, great.
Because I guess what I love about that is there is hesitation sometimes discussing that kind of difficult thing with the
Mm,
client because our brain starts to think, oh my goodness, what if they overreact? What if this is really insulting to them? What if they feel bad? But you've got to be able to look at that bigger picture and be like,
yeah,
well, ethically, it is okay to mention that as long as we're kind and we're giving them that space to make the right decision or a better
mm,
decision. And it's worked out really well. So that's
yeah.
great.
I think there's a temptation to just go, um, the easier might not be the right term, but more comfortable route, which is just don't rebook them.
Yeah, yeah.
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 I understand that. But if you're thinking ethics,
I know.
it's like ethically, if that person is going to benefit from a massage regularly,
absolutely.
then you got to have that difficult conversation.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I think framing it in terms of what would be the benefit to the client is a really lovely way to think about it. And that's one of the beautiful benefits of having a mentor in your space, to be able to do that reflective practice and go, how do I approach this in a really elegant way that actually brings out the best for the client, but gets you a great outcome as well. I think it's really important. And they're important conversations to have, because you don't have to put up with it.
Yep.
That you can say it in a really really good way.
I love that. Thanks for sharing, Christine. What about you, Leash? Have you got one?
I have one when I had a younger team, and somebody moved in next door to the clinic, and he was a client of ours, and one of the girls started dating him. Particularly the girl who he used to see. And so we had to kind of have a conversation and go, what are the boundaries around this? Like when is this okay, when this is not okay? And I was pretty clear with my boundaries, and I just said to them, when the shagging starts, the massaging with you here stops. The end. They were young. They were pretty okay with that kind of language. In fact, it was probably the most gentle of language I could use with them. However, it was just a really good standard of, if anything, if you guys want to have a relationship, I'm not going to stop that. That's not my place to suggest who you should and shouldn't date. However, I have an ethical responsibility for this practice to ensure that we are having really good standards and best practice standards.
And
boundaries. Yeah,
exactly.
The boundary issue.
So that was definitely a boundary that we had in the clinic, and we just made that was just the line. When the shagging starts, the massaging with you here stops.
So did he have to go to a different massage therapist within your business?
I can neither confirm nor deny, but yeah.
Oh dear.
And he was a client for quite some time after that as well, which was great.
It might be worth asking from an ethical point of view, did this happen a lot?
Once again, it did not. No, it didn't happen a lot. What about you, James? You've worked with a bunch of developers and design people in the teams that you've run over time, and they haven't always been smooth sailing. Developers, are they renowned for being really nice smelling folk? Is that...
Well, no. That's something that you might strike more often in a kind of development space than you do with massage, actually. But I actually wanted to share an ethical challenge that I have found in the massage industry. I know that especially when we first started doing a lot of talking about marketing and promotion, and one of the keys that we see for running a successful practice is retaining clients, like rebooking.
Yeah.
And there's actually one specific massage association, which I won't name, but there's one association that says it's unethical to rebook clients beyond what you would see as like a medical need. And while I would say, you never want to book people that don't want or need massage, massage in general is kind of seen as something where regular treatment is useful for pretty much everyone, unless they've actually got an indication not to be seen. So I kind of feel like in some ways, the ethics I have as a marketer could be seen as, by some people, as maybe in opposition to the ethics of
a conflict.
Yeah, like a little bit of a conflict, not just a marketer, but a business person could be seen as in ethical conflict to the treatment of clients. And I guess like having that conversation with many, many different therapists over time now, I'd say probably 95% of people are pretty on board with anyone could use a massage treatment anytime. You're not going to overbook them, but a retention strategy that keeps people on board every month or every whatever is a very common way to keep people healthy rather than wait until they've got a problem that you have to fix. It's like maintenance health, right? Which I kind of see as a really good alignment between what we would want as a business person and as a caring therapist for our clients, and what aligns well as a kind of a business practice. So from my point of view, that's kind of an ethical, wrestle, but something where I think we can land at a place that works well for everyone. And I know in some conversations I've had, I've even pointed out that as an association, maybe one of the roles of an association is to uphold the long-term viability of their members, and that maybe by suggesting that they don't rebook people, maybe they're being unethical in their kind of like business practices. It's like, we got all these members, we just want them to be poor and unhappy. So I don't know if that's kind of like another ethical consideration there. It's not just our clients that we want to look at, it's the actual you guys and the therapists themselves that are running amazing practices and working with lots of people. So yeah, I kind of see ethics as covering a broad range in practice. There is definitely those awkward conversations and the ethics that are around that. There's maybe boundaries around clients and how to ethically maintain and keep those. And then there are business ethics as well on the flip side of it.
Yeah, we had another situation in our clinic where we had, many people who come in. We had a couple that would come and see us, and we knew that one of them, they had an ex-husband, and that he was also a client of ours. They didn't know one another came in. We just did because that's boundaries and ethics, right? Is that confidentiality? And one time I was just looking at the roster and clocked that actually the ex-husband and the partners were and the new partner were about to be booked in one after the other.
Oh boy.
And so I said to the team, no, this cannot happen. It wouldn't have allowed, like when we were thinking about it, it's like, well, technically they're all welcome and it doesn't matter that one another knows. However, I don't believe that it would have led to a great amount of trust and certainty if they each knew that they came, because they were cared for as they were needed to be. They were cared for individually as individual people, and knew that there was a high amount of trust. And we never spoke about other clients to other clients. So we knew that there was a huge level of integrity, but I also think the unknown was really helpful. And so we just rescheduled one of them, and they never knew.
Yeah. And that's avoiding awkward conversations as well, right? Or potential conflict within one or both of them.
I think I was going to say that makes me think that sometimes general public don't actually realize that massage therapists are really good at their confidentiality and not discussing what happens within the treatment space out with the treatment space or with anybody else without any consent. And I had a situation in Scotland in particular. This happened a lot, where I used to promote my business when I was first starting out. I used to go along to the church guild and give talks about, how massage can help with things like arthritis in your hands and, things like that to that particular age group that frequented the guild. And I used to have quite a few clients come from there, and then they'd be like, oh, Christine, I know that Mary, she comes to see you. Now, just tell me straight, my neck is much worse than hers, isn't it? I'd have to go, well, I'm not allowed to say anything. She goes, oh, I'm sure that mine is worse because, she complains, but I just think she's a faker.
Settle this argument for us, Christine.
Can you
Who's got the worst
tell us straight? Who's got the worst? I have rights to complain, sort of idea. And it was, and I just have to smile and say, I'm really not allowed to discuss that. And they go, oh, but you can tell me. I'm not going to tell anyone. I won't tell a soul. And you're like,
no, just a little bit. It's like because I'm of a certain age.
Because I'm of a certain age, I have no boundaries, no filter, and I can just, push you around a wee bit. Can I just test that boundary? And I just have to say, no, I'm not allowed to say a word. And she'd be like, oh, well, like this. And I just have to smile and say, yeah, nothing. I can say nothing.
I have some clients now, massage clients now, who are all from the same retirement living complex.
Oh.
And it's a similar thing. They're trying to, they're not out there asking.
They're not outright asking.
Just like asking.
They're not like in competition to see who has the worst.
And yet they will say things, and I'm like, Just silence, yeah? Like not even nod and agree, nothing, just how's that pressure? Like just kind of, is that stone feeling warm enough for you? Good. And just kind of completely just moving it to the side because it's none of their business at all. And it can be so easy to get roped in if you're a talker to their conversation or be pulled into
pulled
that
in.
drama. And they're like, guess what? Elicia said that I blah, 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 or Christine said I blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no.
But
No.
sometimes that comes through though. Like, people come in, they say, well, I heard blah, 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 that you said X, Y, Z. And we have to be really almost just stick that in the back of our minds as to we're going to get judged, not only on the treatment that we deliver, but how we communicate and conduct ourselves throughout the entirety of our practice, which is,
It's why you want to have those standards that are above reproach and be really clear in those boundaries of what is okay and what's not okay.
So can I try and draw this into something? Like we've got privacy or confidentiality.
Yeah.
We've sort of talked a bit about boundaries and maybe what you call it, awkward conversations, but around sort of making sure that there's a way of being able to help our clients when we want to connect with them in a specific, clean way. I know, Leash, you actually used to teach a subject called
legal and ethical requirements in massage. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's how to make sure that they don't bore you to death before you teach. Like if you can pass teaching that unit, then you can
get
keep
to teach
teaching.
the real massage.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess what I was going to say is, like, is there a way, like, are there just half a dozen or even less things that are kind of seen as the ethical things to focus on in a massage business? Like, we're talking about privacy, confidentiality.
Writing your notes was a big part of it. Writing your notes, you must write them within 24 hours. And if they're written outside of 24 hours, date that and note that. Signing them if you can. And I think that's something that always came to mind in that kind of legal and ethical requirements. You're bound by your code of ethics with your association. So it's really important that you look at it. I know when I was teaching, I would take in the sort of 4 or 5 different associations in Australia, and we would have a look at them. Some of them are very detailed. Some of them are much more broad.
Yeah.
And looking at, like, it actually doesn't matter what you choose and why you choose it and which association you're with. What matters is you know what you're signing up for. It's actually the same in Australia with private health insurance. Every single health insurance that you have a provider number for, or you are a provider of services for, you actually have an individual agreement with them. I don't think that was explicitly explained to me in that many words, but actually you are. And so these are some of the things that we would be really make sure you've always got insurance. Know that your insurance will often give you a free 15-minute conversation with a
lawyer.
A lawyer.
Yeah.
So a lot of the insurance policies out there will actually give you a free, like, it's auditory conversation, so they're not writing anything in stone. But I think that I've actually used that multiple times for many different things, especially when this seems like a really sticky situation to me because I'm right in the thick of it. What do I do? And they can be quite impartial, give you black and white, and just kind of speak into it. And I've really appreciated that sort of angle.
And it's a good point that every practicing massage therapist is bound by a code of ethics. In Australia, the associations are all, but even if you're not in an association, you fall under the general health practitioners, or whatever it's called.
Unregistered health practitioners.
That's the one.
Australia.
Which does have a code of ethics. And you're required to follow it. And in the US, there's the certifications and the boards. They all have codes of ethics as well that you're required to follow. And probably most other countries that will be listening to this. Very similar sort of process.
What's it like in Scotland, Christine? Are there particular ethical standards that you have to follow?
Yeah, absolutely. There's the laws of the land, obviously. And once you have a set amount of employees and things, you've got to follow your health and safety. We had to do, for health and safety, we had to actually do a risk assessment of our treatment rooms, and that would help us do things like get funding and things like that as well. So you'd apply for that if you had all of your bits of paper in order, which was great. We've got
And I'd say in massage, a lot of ethics comes down to looking after the client, right? It's like making sure that they're at the center of how you're behaving and acting, looking after their interests first. It's probably the basis of the
do no
ethics
harm
that are in place.
Consent, informed consent, written consent, verbal consent, all that kind of stuff. That was another big part of it. Sorry.
And that saves you from getting done for.
Well, there's some legal compliance obligations there as well too, right? Like that's part of it.
I mean, I remember doing informed consent or implied consent. The person's there for massage. They're assuming they're getting a massage. Yeah, that's implied consent. But then actually, hey, I'm going to treat this area. And I remember some of my students went to touch the area to point out where they were going to on their client.
Right, okay,
and go,
wow.
You're not allowed to touch your body. You're actually asking them for permission to say, can I treat this area? So show them on you because you're allowed to touch it. And because I'm a very visual, kinesthetic person, like being able to say, I'm going to work on here. This is what happens. This is what round shoulder looks like. This is what we're going to do. And obviously I'm hamming it up for the purpose of demonstration because, no one's going to walk out looking like that when you work with them. However, that was a really great way to teach my students how to have a great conversation with someone so they were very comfortable with being touched. And then I think some of the research that's come out to say, what are the biggest complaints? And it's like the vast majority of complaints is to do with draping. And I'm like, I mean, at the time you could go to Big W in Australia and we use a lot of bath towels, like towel sheets and bath sheets and things like that. And it's like, you can get a $9 bath sheet that is like the size of a single bed. They're fucking huge. How is draping still an issue? And the biggest thing that you can be caught, and I'm like, not hard people, and I would say that to my students as well, just go and buy the biggest towels or the biggest sheets you can find and use them because it's not hard. It's really not hard to have adequate coverage of everything and everyone for a very small investment.
Love it. Hey, I'm going to say thanks for joining me in the sound booth today, ladies. Some good wisdom there for ethics, and absolutely can't wait to hear you on the next podcast as well. So
thanks, Jay.
Catch you soon.
Thanks.